Hello everyone and welcome to another Versus video. I'm Brad Nelson and I'm joined today by Brian Brown doing it better than Todd Anderson. I'm not letting that one die.
No, yeah, the old BBD, IP, TTA. Q,
correct.
Yeah.
Yep. And today I'm going to be playing Joshua Watt's Star City Games Texas State Championship deck list. Yes, that is a mouthful. I did get through it just like what you just said. We're very talented with saying words.
Yeah, we are like words are good.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, but this is a guy, Mr. Joshua Watts, has been asking me to play with his Nia Walker's deck for about a month and a half. And with like Pro Tour testing and me being stuck on Brave Nia and other things, I just haven't gotten to it because I haven't gotten to play it on Moto. But he won 2 IQs while he was trying to get me to play with it. And then I just stumbled upon the Texas Star City Games State Championship, you know, first place deck list, which was just him playing the same deck he's been telling me to play over and over again. So I read you loud and clear, sir. You finally have my attention. It only took him literally knocking my door down with this deck to finally get it. But it is a sweet Nia deck, so let's take a look at it and talk about a lot of the numbers. I have been in conversations with Joshua about his deck, and he has even said, you know, it is 61 cards. He doesn't know what to cut, but I'm just going to play it as is today and start making changes later. One of my big changes I want to make is put Courser in this deck just to help generate card advantage. But before we actually talk about what I changed, let's talk about why it exists. We have 2-drops, Mana with Sliver and Sylvan Keratin to be the accelerators. Now, Mana with Sliver does not look like the normal mana accelerant, but in a deck that wants to play 3 colors, a bunch of temples, it is going to act better than an Elvish Mystic most of the time.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, if you look, we have Tristanis and Angels and Elspeths and Mortars. I have been using this guy to kick a lot of Mortars, and I've been happy about it. The other 2-drops are Voice of Resurgence and Sylvan Keratin. So a very weird smattering of creatures, right? But the reason for that is because the rest of the deck functions as a weird mid-range permanent control deck. We have Tristanis sitting right beside Perforoses, gaining value from your cards like Xenagos, Angels, Assembled Legions, and Elspeths. And the Tristanis look very weird in this deck, and they look like, yeah, you're not going to populate a lot, things like that, but it not only comes down and gains you life when you have your other spells, or when you just cast a Keratin, gain 3 life. It's a good blocker against a lot of the aggressive decks, and it combos unbelievably well with Archangel of Thune. Just being able to play this into an Archangel of Thune means that you get to trigger it immediately. And then, you know, once you slam the Elspeth, you just kind of do your little happy dance.
Yeah.
By getting 3 different triggers, all pumping the Archangel of Thune's ability by gaining 3 different separate lives from Tristani. But the whole idea of this deck is just to be permanent control, and Ajani helps out just by digging us into more action. It can also like keep a guy on the ground and block any big monster in the way, but for the most part, we're just going to build a board presence. So if we play Tristani and they kill it, guess what happened? They didn't progress their board position. So then we're going to be able to play a different Planeswalker or a different threat that is going to generate card advantage throughout the entire game, or they deal with it, which allows us to play another one. So this deck can get put on the back foot pretty easily, but you do have Mortars, Angels, Elspeths, Tristanis, and some Mana Ramp, even these guys that can block multiple times to get you through that. But against the, you know, the more controlling decks, this deck is not synergy based at all, even though it looks like it's synergy based, because these cards are just good with everything else, but you don't need one or the other to exist and play an important role.
Yeah, like so, all the cards like combo with other cards, but it doesn't matter which cards they're comboing with.
Yeah, and that's why this deck is very good against cards like Thoughtseize, or very good against counters or Detention Spheres, because you are just constantly putting something on the board that is a must deal with. And when they are in combination with each other, it is almost impossible for an opponent to do anything proactive that you actually care about, because you have so many good answers and your threats are answers to their stuff, especially since if you have a Perforos, if they play an Elspeth, you can just play your own Elspeth and kill that. That's one of our like strategies we took into the block constructed Pro Tour.
Yeah.
That still just lives in this deck. Not only does Elspeth combo with these 2 4-drops, but it combos with Xenagos, being able to produce a ton of mana. I've actually played a Xenagos, ticked up for like 8 mana, played an Ajani, ticked up, found a Chandra, played a Chandra. You know, just like unbelievable turns. And that's really what this deck is about, is just unbelievable turns and getting to those positions and staying alive. And the way that Standard looks right now, this deck actually does do a lot of positive things. It just looks like a smattering of weird cards, but in this format, it makes a lot of sense to me. And playing it, I played a little Moto last night before we recorded this video, and I was doing exceptionally well with it. I was shocked how, this deck, with how many random cards are in it, how fluid it felt while I was playing it. So I'm impressed with Mr. Joshua Watts' deck. I think that there is some tuning that can be done, especially since this is going to be my new project in Standard. I'm just going to grind a bunch on Moto with it. So over the next couple weeks, I think I'm at least going to evolve it the way that I would build a deck, and I'll be showing you guys those results later. But today we're just going to see how it does against Red White Devotion. Let's take a look at the sideboard though, because it's a wild one. All right, so in the sideboard, we're going to talk about the elephant in the room, 4 Deicide. He really does not want to deal with other gods. I mean, it's funny because, it does deal with gods, but one of the cards that I wish this could kill is Xenagos the Reveler. Not actually, the actual god itself.
Yeah.
But there is one in the format that does give this deck a lot of problem, that's Thassa. Not only does this hit Bident of Thassa, but it hits Thassa herself, and is just a good answer against the control decks that are trying to Detention Sphere all the time.
Yeah, it feels like maybe you could have a couple of Banishing Lights probably in place with a few of them, but I do think that like having this kind of effect is worthwhile.
Yeah, one of the immediate changes I did make to the deck, I'm playing his 75 in this first video, but I put some Glares in my sideboard. I thought Glare does a lot what Deicide does, but it's just better against a lot of the creatures, especially because like Voice Resurgence isn't that annoying, but sometimes you want to target it, and or other Elspeths. And Banishing Light, the thing I don't like about that is this deck doesn't have a lot of good targets for cards like Abrupt Decay or Detention Spheres hit the Planeswalkers, but like Banishing Light just feels like not the card that I want. Like I want Banishing Light to answer their Banishing Lights or their Detention Spheres against control. So I don't want a card like that, because then they just have a chance of retargeting, whereas I just got rid of it, So especially if they have Glares or if they have Revoke Existences or something like that, or their own Deicides. But yeah, so there's 4 of this, which could be trimmed down. Other than that, I like the numbers in the deck. I want access to a 3rd Scavenging Ooze against the Reanimator decks that you saw, BBD, destroy me with earlier this week, and another Archangel Thune against a lot of the other creature decks, or even Mono Blue Devotion. This is one of the better creatures you can have access to.
And those two also work really well with each other too.
Could you explain that?
Yeah, so you can exile a creature and gain a life, and then put a counter on all your creatures with Archangel Thune.
Oh, that does make a lot of sense.
Yes, it's very...
Yeah, thank you. That's why I have you here.
I'm here to contribute, like, just as much insight as I can provide.
Yes.
And that is as much as I can provide.
So the 3 Selesnya Charms are here for, not only do they come in against hyper-aggressive decks where you just want to trade as many resources, but that's the worst thing it does. The best thing this card does is kills demons, gods, other big monsters that you have trouble dealing with. So this is going to come in a lot of times when they just have big, scary monsters, and when we have to deal with them earlier in the game than normal. And then the Mistcutter Hydras are good against control decks, but they are much needed against the Mono Blue matchup, because the whole thing about Mono Blue is they have the inevitability, so because of Cyclonic Rift, so you need to pressure them. You can build this amazing board position that they can just kill with 1 Cyclonic Rift. And so you just need to keep them on their back foot. You need to keep trading resources and dealing damage to them, and Mistcutter Hydra is by far the best way to do that, along with Anger of the Gods to sweep up all of their little riff-raff creatures, or against like Brave Naya, green-white tokens, any aggressive strategy. Anger of the Gods is going to be good, because you still want to play your cards like Voice of Resurgence against them, but you're just using that as a roadblock to annoy them before you anger. You're never going to go Voice into an Anger of the Gods. You're going to try to get a Planeswalker into play before you actually cast this card. So even though this nombos with all of your 2-drops, it's still just fine, especially because we've got Ajani, and I actually have, just like boosted all of my guys and then Anger of the Gods. So that was pretty sweet. But anyway, this deck is a ton of fun. If hopefully you have all the cards, or it is a little pricey. There's a ton of mythics and a ton of rares. The entire mana base is rare. The entire creature base is rare. The walkers are rare. Hell, the entire sideboard's rare.
You can get those Mana Weft Slivers.
You can get Selesnya Charms and Mana Weft Slivers very cheap right now.
Yep.
Other than that, every card is a rare in the deck. Thank you, Joshua Watts, for making the most profitable Star City Games deck of all time. Yeah. No, I like the deck a lot, and it's a ton of fun. So let's see how it does against Red Devotion, which is like, people don't call like Mono Black the boogeyman of the format, but I have never liked playing against Red White Devotion. That is just an awful deck, because like sometimes it just peters out, and sometimes it just does the most absurd, gross things imaginable. It's like, I'm going to make 20 mana and play 2 dragons and monstrous them and kill you.
I'm hoping to be on the gross end of the spectrum today, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, it's never a bad deck, and it's never not a good video. So I do like having Red White Devotion in the field as well as in our versus video. So we'll see what happens in this video, and I hope I don't embarrass you, Mr. Watts. I hope I don't embarrass you.